Good evening, everyone. The time is now 5:05 p.m. The Warwick Finance Committee is open. May I have a motion for acceptance of the minutes from April 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could go to right outside of the bid docket, right to the Finance Committee agenda item, it's marked item number 3, which is PCR 24-23, formerly bid 2023-088, repairs to engine 13, for full communication. We had a request from the administration to hold this item, so to bar any issues or mess with people's planning if they intended, I'd like to call for a motion from this committee to hold. I'm sorry. I'm looking for a motion to hold PCR 24-23 per request of the administration.
Move to hold.
Second.
Oh, I apologize. Until the first meeting in May.
May
8th. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We'll now start on the consent calendar for bids. May I have a motion for the acceptance of the minutes for the meeting held on April 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Bid 2023-406, Street Improvement Program. Good evening, Chrissy. If you could identify yourself in the department.
Good evening. Christy Moretti, Public Works. Public Works went out to bid for the street improvements, as we do just about annually, and are requesting to award this bid to D'Ambra Construction, Cardi Corporation, and T. Miozy in the amount of $2.3 million for a one-year period.
Thank you, Christy. So I see that we have these 3 companies. Were there any special requests by our department for, so people wouldn't do penny bidding, if you will?
No, the bid was actually completely revised, so when it went out, none of that was allowed.
Okay.
So it was all above board and no issues.
And the all awarded companies honored that request?
Yes, and they're all the 3 lowest.
Thank you. And just on operational logistical side, do you feel that these 3 companies will be enough to get the projects done that we were looking for?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to say I do support, once again, having 3 options. I think that is the best way to move forward. This is always the top issue that we hear from constituents. We did a ton of paving last summer. I'm looking forward to a ton more this summer. So I support having 3 vendors available for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. That is worth stating that we are, the colleagues, and I can speak for myself, I'm very proud of the amount of time, money, and resources we've put into improving the streets of our city. Councilman Lattiser, I saw your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have any issues with the bid per se. My question is, and I don't remember ever seeing this before, but in the items that you're proposing, this is to Christie, 510-0400, 660,000, 431-0400, $1,000,006. That's basically 2.2 million of the 2.3. And then you have 63,290 to be determined based on budget. I don't ever recall seeing or having a bid come before us and asking us to vote on something that's to be determined. What is the reason for that item, to be determined?
Well, obviously, because the budget hasn't been set for fiscal year '24 yet, we don't have a number for paving out of that particular line item. The other one is the ARPA funds. The other one is the loan, the revolving loan that we had got from the infrastructure bank. We are waiting for reimbursements to come back in from National Grid, which is probably where that will end up, and then we can spend it. We just have to come back and increase the cap.
Okay, so no, it wasn't obvious to me where it says based on budget. I'm assuming this budget. So that 63,290, are you insinuating that the potential amount to be approved for that item is going to be 100,000?
It could be 500,000.
What, please?
It could be 500, but that all depends on when we get the reimbursement back from National Grid. Right now, they owe us $749,000. But I don't have it yet, and the budget hasn't been set. Obviously, we would use the other two funding sources first if we were going to say we were going to start paving next week. And then once July 1 rolls around, we would use whatever funds we have as well. And if we are going to exceed the cap that was awarded to us, the 2.3 million, we'd have to come back to council and ask for more spending authority anyway.
So are we bidding on 2.3 million, or are we bidding on 2.3 million plus it could be $500,000, as you said? What are we bidding on? I mean, what are we voting on?
Right now, it's 2.3 million is what we're asking for the cap. There will be funds expended out of 63,290. However, we don't know what that number is yet. So we included it just as it was based on whatever budget we're allowed in fiscal year '24.
And
So
that-
if I have to, once we spend the 2.2 million, I come back before you and say, okay, we have another $700,000 we want to spend, and ask for permission to increase the cap.
which would apply to 63,290.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of the council? Questions, comments from members of the public? Question, comments from members of the public? Thank you. Thank you, Christie. Bid 2023-380 Alpha Fire Apparatus Repairs. Chrissy?
Public Works is requesting to award this bid, and I just want to mention the one that comes right after this. It's all one request of money for $150,000.
Understood.
So we are requesting to award to On Scene and CNS Specialty for fire apparatus repairs under 2023-380A.
Thank you. Questions from members of this committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm happy to see that we finally have two vendors that can do the math, because I did go through about 6 or 7 of these items from On Scene Incorporated and CNS Specialties to calculate their discount rates versus their list prices. And they were, all of them that I looked at were spot on. So I'm happy to see that. The question I have is, CNS included a copy of their labor rates, but On Scene didn't. And why would that be?
The labor rate is, as you can see on page 5, that's what was submitted in the bid. So there's a line for them to submit their hourly rate, and that's what we go by.
Okay.
Regardless of what additional paperwork they submit with their bid.
So this document from CNS, attachment 1, they list all of their labor rates, and they have a regular labor rate on this sheet of $155. And what they have on that first page, on page 5 that you suggested, is a whole different set of labor rates. So which one are we voting on, Christie? Is it on page 5, or is it on their separate sheet of 2023 labor rates?
It's on page 5.
On page 5, okay. Thank you. I just wanted to get that clarified. So the labor rates we're voting on is the labor rates on page 5, and their 2023 labor rates are a moot point. They don't matter. Correct? They don't count.
Well, we don't use them for, clawback repairs and things like that. It's,
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Further questions from members of this council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. Next is bid 2023-380 Bravo, fire apparatus repairs and additional vendors. This is found on page 10. Christie.
this request is simply to add these vendors listed on page 10 to the vendors that we can utilize to send fire apparatus out if it's something that we can't fix in-house. It does use the same bid as, the same cap as the previous bid, $150,000. So between the two of them, it's only $150,000, not $300,000.
Understood. So the cap, as you said, is for, these are just an extenuation, but the cap is 150.
Correct.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Are there questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is more of it's a comment as opposed to a question. And we have seen this numerous times in the past and in the recent past. I have a problem with these type of bids when they come before us because we have vendors that either are not interested enough to bid on the jobs, or they're too lazy to bid on the jobs, or they don't want to bid on the jobs. And now we are going, or at least we're considering approving all these other vendors who didn't make any effort whatsoever to submit a bid up front. And that says to me that perhaps they don't want to be on the record with their bids and with their numbers. And I think by continuing to approve these things, I'll take a 10-second recess, Chairman. I don't want to interrupt your fun over there. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I saw it. You went sneaking that past me.
I didn't shake it, I swear.
I know Councilman Gebhardt moved forward, so I wouldn't notice, but not quick enough.
Everyone did their best.
But I just think that continuing to do this just encourages this type of process to take place. If they can't go through the motions and they can't take the time to submit the bids, then so be it. But that doesn't mean that we have to go ahead and approve it. And it doesn't mean that the Department of Public Works or the fire department or the police department or any other department is going to be in some great big disaster if they have a vehicle that breaks down and needs an immediate repair, because they can always do a 56.6 and the mayor can always issue a 3.3. So I don't see any reason why we should be encouraging this type of bidding process or lack of bidding process to occur. It's not fair to the companies that take the time and effort to go through these bids. And these bids can take a lot of effort to put these bids together. It takes a lot of time, and time is money. To just say, okay, let's throw on another dozen bidders who, for whatever reason, chooses not to bid because perhaps they say, why go through the effort? You know, we're going to get the business anyways, because they're afraid that if they blow a tranny, they can't get it from, John Jones, that they're going to be forced to call us. I can't support that. I'm not going to support that. This is something that very easily our departments can be taken care of. The public can be protected. Safety can be protected because the mayor can do a 3.3 in the absence of awarding bids to contractors that refuse to bid, don't want to bid, or too lazy to bid. It's not fair. Mr. Chairman, I respectfully request a PCR number on this because I will not be supporting this, not because of the intent of the bid, but because of the process. The process is not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So I'm going to continue with comments and questions from the council and the public. I do acknowledge that the councilman requested a PCR, but I'm going to follow through with the questions. Okay, councilman? So we're all on the same page. Are there any further comments or questions from members of the council? Are there any further comments or questions from members of the public? Further comments or questions from members of the public? City Clerk, may I have a PCR, please? Please, for the record, per request of Councilman Lattiser, bid 2023-424, purchase of a refrigerant Thayer Warburton Arenas is now PCR 47. Oh, for crying out loud, I'm sorry. I wrote it in the wrong spot. I wrote it where it was dry. I apologize. So for correction, Councilman Lattiser requested a PCR on bid 2023-380 Bravo fire apparatus repairs, and this is now PCR 47-23. Thank you. Is there a recommendation by the committee? I'm sorry. I did. Right, I did. Is there a recommendation by the committee for either favorable action or hold or whatever your request?
Favorable action.
I have a motion for favorable. I will second. All those in favor? Aye. No.
No, that's what I'm saying. Why are we?
We're the PCR. But we have to send it to her.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
there's a little bit of confusion, so if we could just follow through on a couple of steps, it may be
Certainly.
duplication, but Councilman Lattiser requested the PCR on bid 2023-380B.
Yes.
Bravo, which you assigned as PCR 4723. I just want to make sure if there was any other questions or comments from the public that were raised or other council members.
Oh, I see Councilman Ricks has his hand.
Pardon me for asking this question a little late in the process. So I just wanted to get a little clarification on an item here. So the various vendors on the list, I imagine that they may have different price structures, right?
They all have different price structures, but they all have different functions. Some of them, only one of them is E1 certified. The others are not. One of them can work on the German the German trucks. One of them works on the rescues, just as proprietary to the manufacturer. So New England, Detroit, a lot of them have a Detroit transmission. So if we have an issue, and there's other layers to it as well. We could have a truck that's a 2021, and some parts of it may still be covered under warranty, and some parts of it may not. So if we send it up for transmission work and they find 4 things wrong with it, 3 of them might be covered and 1 of them might not be. So that's the reason why we ask for the additional vendors, not because they're too lazy to bid or can't be bothered, but because we utilize their services when necessary. And for the last year, I can tell you that we've had just not all that many repairs for fire apparatus, and we spent $106,240.20. So we haven't even met the $150,000 cap that we have that expires on June 7th of this year. So we do a lot of stuff in-house in as much as we can, but there are a lot of layers to the onion that you have to peel back when it comes to vehicle repairs, especially with warranties.
Now, I can imagine the difficulty with putting some of these these items out for bid, getting the list, when a lot of this is just really speculative because we don't know which parts are going to fail, and we don't know if there might be a transmission that fails on one vehicle or a different vehicle that would require different types of vendors because of those different specialties or the like. So I can appreciate why this bid is in front of us in the form that it's in. Although I can also certainly appreciate Councilman Lattiser's concern and would echo that in general, that wherever possible, where it can be narrowed down more, then that's certainly desirable. So I guess that my last follow-up question for now would be, as to those items that aren't exclusive, where we're really locked in to going with one vendor or another, where there is competition, the administration, the department would call around to the different vendors on the list to get the lowest quote and then go with the lowest quote, right?
For the most part, there is only, well, yes, there are vendors that can, do multiple. Like I can give you for an example. We have International Rescues. One of them, I think, is a 2014. Part of the engine is still under warranty and part of it is not. So we avoided a $25,000 repair by only having to pay for part of it because the rest of it was under warranty. However, if there is someone that they, are multiple people, yes, they'll ask for a quote. But the other side of that too is that they don't send anything out for a major repair without checking with me first.
And that's good to hear. That really addresses my main concern when it comes to these types of situations, that if we can get it done for less in-house, then as you said, then that's the plan. If it's something that needs to go out for repair, then we're going to go through all of those routine steps as we would for anything else, and make sure that we're getting that lowest bid for the city, not one of these situations that people hear about with some other cities and towns where you have a list of multiple vendors and then it's a matter of just one individual's discretion where they pick up the phone and they call the one that they're friendly with. No. In Warwick, we go with the lowest one. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Christie. Any further questions from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Are there any further questions from members of the public? For clarity of record, what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the motion requests again. Bid formally 2023 380 Bravo fire apparatus repairs additional vendors was pulled as a PCR per request to Councilman Lattiser. That is now PCR 47-23. I will seek a motion for the committee recommendation at this time.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Next is bid 2023-424, purchase refrigerant Thayer Warburton Arenas. Christie, it's your show.
This request is to purchase the refrigerant to put the chillers back where they need to be so they can run. Right now, the chillers for Thayer are under maintenance repairs, actually extensive repair right now. We're having a compressor replaced. They recovered about 1,500 pounds from the system. They both hold 3,000 pounds apiece. We've had a consistent leak on Warburton that we've had patched, I don't know how many times. So the company that we use has been very good about, keeping us running, and but we don't have enough refrigerant on hand, and we don't really know what's left in Warburton at this point, just because it's had consistent leaks for the season. So we are requesting $100,000 to purchase 3,000 pounds of refrigerant. Because we've recovered 1,500 pounds from Thayer, we have 1,000 pounds on hand. So we're assuming if we can get at least 1,500 out of the Warburton compressors when that goes down for repair, we won't need any more than the 3,000 we're requesting.
Thank you, Christie. And I do want to say it is a great city location, and I want to thank the administration. I want to go on record in thanking the administration. They have been phenomenal. When I call with questions, and the administration also goes to your department, Christy, when I call with questions, because I know that we've put a lot of repair in it, I get the answers. But more importantly, I'm really happy that we are making the investment, or making the investment to revitalize that, because I live right next door to it, and I drive by it every day. I walk by it every day, and it is the most active I've seen. And when it's all completely said and done, I can only imagine, like, what's going to be happening there coming down the road. The businesses around the area are happy about it. The gas stations are happy about it. The rental places are happy about it. It's just an exciting time to see what's going on there. So this is just, in my eyes, what I see as just one more step very closer, and the light is at the end of the tunnel. So thank you so much. Are there any further questions from members of this committee? Comments, questions? Comments, questions from members of this council? Councilwoman Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Chrissy, I know we've been working on this, their arena for a long time. If it's not this, it's the pool, but we're talking about this right now. My question is, and I understand the importance of this chillers being up to date. Are we foreseeing any other problems coming from here?
I wish I could honestly say no, but these systems are 20 years old now. A lot of the piping, some of it needs to be replaced, which is happening along with what's happening in that room now. Just simply because it's wet in there, it's covered in insulation, and it's deteriorating. So I'm hoping that I won't get any more 11 p.m. phone calls that we have a refrigerant leak. So I can't honestly say that this is it, but this is a huge step in the right direction, especially for the Thayer chillers, because they are, not to get into too much detail, but they're having oil skimming issues off the refrigerant, and it's been a battle. The HVAC company has been very good about taking care of it, keeping us running, but it's been a battle. So we're excited to get this stuff replaced, but this would be the last piece of the puzzle for us to get this one up and running. So once Thayer is complete and running and a sheet of ice made there, we're going to take Warwick down, do the repairs there, and have a new sheet of ice in the back rink as well.
So we don't have an air market date that everything would be done, because you still got to worry about the pipes right now, right?
Well, I'm hoping that both rinks will be up and running by mid-July. Don't hold me to that, because you never know what you're going to run into when it comes to repairs. But so far, the Thayer repairs have been moving along as they should.
Okay, I understand that, it's old, and we need all these things done. I just know that because it's a revenue-generated facility, that, the more longer it's closed, the worse it's for us, plus we keep adding more money to it. I'm just trying to see, is there a light at the end of the tunnel, because there's a lot of people asking, well, when is it going to open? When is it going to open?
So Warburton's still open right now. And there's it's our, quote unquote slow time. So Warburton is open. And then once we get done with Thayer, we'll shift everything to the front rink and close Warburton. So one rink will be open at all times. So people aren't losing anything as far as, ice rentals or any of that. It's a very well laid out plan, I think, for what we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Christie, over the past, say, 2 years, how many times have we addressed or have had to address leaks in these refrigerants on these chillers?
I don't know.
Many, right? Many
Yeah,
times.
it happens, yes.
So that's what I can't even begin to understand, is we keep having all these leaks and we keep pouring thousands of dollars into these leaks, but yet the leaks are not fixed. And you're forced to come back here to ask for more money to fix the leaks. So why haven't the leaks been fixed once and for all a long time ago?
The answer to that question is there are, and I wish I could show you what this room looks like. There's two chillers. There's two chillers, and each chiller has two compressors on it. So we have 4 compressors that are running at any given time. There's one runs and one's supposed to be a backup. But if one's running and we have a problem, they're both running. We've had a lot of issues. I could go on and on about what has happened in that room, and this was going on long before I became responsible for the maintenance. At this point, we're just trying to move forward. We've identified, we had one compressor completely implode, like literally imploded, and which is the one that's being replaced now. This job, is it expensive? Yes, it is. It's very expensive to maintain when things break down. However, this facility is utilized by a lot of people. The Warwick figure skaters are very happy with the things that are happening in the facility and the way it looks now, and the updates, and the junior hockey is as well. We've got some other groups that have come in. It's not that we, aren't fixing the leaks, but, we can fix one spot, and then so that's fine, and then it builds pressure further down the line. There's a lot of piping involved, and there's pipes under the floor, and so without going into a whole lot of explanation regarding these mechanics, it's a lot, and I understand that it's expensive, and I understand that we periodically come back and have to ask for, more money for certain things, but this is what we have to do to make sure these facilities are running properly.
So in the past couple of years, how much money have we spent on attempting to fix the leaks in these chillers?
Well, it's not just leaks. I mean, there were a lot of other problems as well.
Well, right now, we're talking about loss of refrigerant. I know it's not the first time that you've had to come before us for monies to fix losses of refrigerant. So,
Well, the last time we had a significant leak, and I had the company come out, they put 125 pounds into Warburton, which is a lot for a one-time. And there's also other guidelines that they have to follow. We're not, they're not supposed to, they have limits as to what they can put in at any given time in the system. So, there's other pieces to it that, I'm not an HVAC person, and I just know what they tell me. I have no reason to believe that they're not telling me the truth, but it's not, I don't really know how else to explain it. It's not that we're not doing anything wrong, and we're not doing anything. It's just these systems are old and they run constantly, and they vibrate. That's the other thing that happens too. So when the compressors are running, the whole chiller is vibrating. So it's vibrating the pipes. So that, over time weakens them as well. It's not that anyone's, not doing their job or not making repairs or anything like that.
So I didn't say anything about that. I'm questioning the amounts of monies that we have spent on fixing leaks in these chillers. And now we're coming back for another $100,000 to fix more leaks in the chillers. So I guess the question is, how much does it cost to replace a chiller and have this problem over and done with and gone for the next 20 years? You said they're 20 years old now, as opposed to, more often than not, having to come before us requesting another $100,000 to fix this leak, and then come back again at some point for another amounts of monies to fix another leak. What would be the cost to replace a chiller?
If we had to replace both of them, because they're both the same age, they were built the same time, probably several $1 million.
How much?
Probably several million.
7 million?
Several.
Several million.
Yes, because not only would we have to do the everything that's in that room in
Right.
both chillers, we'd have to do the cooling towers on the roof, where leaks also occur with refrigerant. So it's not just limited to, one chiller that's leaking.
I understand, but it certainly could be, as we're fixing one now and waiting to fix another one later, or keeping one running, the same thing could be done for a replacement. It just seems counterproductive to me to keep pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into a chiller that's not getting fixed. And it's through no fault of yours or the people that are fixing it. It's you have various component parts of this piece of equipment that are just going to continue to fall apart and continue to die. But now that we're talking about the dollars and cents, and I know you mentioned it in here, as well as generated revenue from these rentals, do you have a number for us that you can tell us with reference to revenue versus expenses? The expenses to operate these two facilities versus the revenue.
I can't.
Do you
The
have?
Public Works does not collect the revenue, so I couldn't give you that number.
So would that be finance?
No, Parks and Recreation collects
Parks
the
and Recs?
revenue.
Okay, is anyone here from Parks and Recs? No? I'd be curious to know what the revenue side of this operation is versus the expense side. I'd be curious to know that. So I guess the request would have to be made through Parks and Recs. Okay. I can do that. And the other thing that caught my attention in this, it says, we are estimating, let me back up. Where does these materials come from that you're purchasing to fix this in the amount of $100,000? Where's this stuff coming from?
The refrigerant, New York.
From New York. Okay, and it says here that we are estimating that the shipping will be no more than $10,000. Is that true? $10,000 to ship refrigerant from New York to here?
Yes,
How is that?
they're 24-pound cylinders.
They're 24-pound cylinders?
Yes,
And?
there's 40 cylinders to a pallet. So just some
that's
quick math, that's
1,000
probably
pounds,
3,000 pounds.
8,000 pounds.
A
You got 24 cylinders at, what'd you say the weight was?
They're 24-pound cylinders.
24 pounds, so that's 4,800 pounds, right? 4,800 pounds. And we're talking $10,000 to ship it from New York to here. Whew. I'd like to see that bill when it comes in. That just seems like an enormous amount of money to ship. That's all we're getting is 24 containers that weigh 24 pounds
We're
apiece?
requesting 3,000 pounds.
3,000 pounds. Okay, 3,000 pounds. That number just struck me as being pretty wild. But in any event, so did they provide you with an estimate? I mean, they should know this like right off the top of their head. You give them a phone call. How much is it going to cost me to ship that stuff from New York to
They gave me
here?
what you see in your packet, which is the
Hey,
email.
what, please?
They gave me what you see in your packet. I asked for a quote, and the reply of the pricing plus shipping and handling is what I got.
Of $10,000.
No, there was no, that was our estimate of shipping.
Oh. So what's their estimate? I
The
can't see their
refrigerant is
estimate.
probably going to cost $89,000 itself. So we're assuming that the other $10,000 to $11,000 is going to cover the shipping. However, if I don't have to order 3,000 pounds, I'm also not going to do that.
And they're also telling you that there's going to be a $250 cylinder deposit on each cylinder.
No, that was for a different size. I
That was a different
requested
one?
pricing for different sizes of cylinders.
Okay. Okay, that was 110-pound cylinders. So is there a deposit on the 24-pound cylinders?
No,
No.
Councilman, that's the time if you had one final question or comment.
No, I'm just amazed at the shipping costs for shipping these items, 3,000 pounds from New York to here at $10,000. I mean, I get trucks delivered all the time, and that just seems like a wild number, but we can keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of the council? Councilman Gebhardt.
I just wanted to offer the councilman from the 23 budget for revenues off the arena is 550,000, and the run rate for the last couple of years has been in the 500 to 600,000 range annual. The revenues generated by the rink.
Say the expenses were?
I just have the revenues here.
Oh,
from the-
okay.
From the
So it's
budget.
about five what?
550.
550 in revenue.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Too bad you didn't have the expense side, right?
Councilman Sinapi.
For Councilman Lattiser, the shipping of things in general, especially the larger items, the costs are all over the place. The school committee has the same problem, and they're similarly ridiculous.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other further comments, questions from members of the council? Comments, questions from members of the public? Comments, questions from members of the public? Thank you. The next item is bid 2023-429, grant application services, Lincoln Avenue Transmission Main Rehabilitation. Christy, thank you so much for your time and explanation. Good evening. Could you please identify name and title?
Good evening. Terry DiPetrillo, Chief of the Water Department.
Could you speak up, please? I'm sorry.
Terry DiPetrillo, Chief of the Water Department.
Thank you.
The Water Division is requesting exemption to notice to engage in service with Stantec Engineering for grant application services in accordance with the Environmental Protection Agency's Community Grants Program. Contract 1 of the Lincoln Avenue Transmission Main Rehabilitation includes work to rehabilitate two sections of parallel 30-inch pipelines that cross on the Interstate 95, Route 37, and associated exit ramps via slip lining and open cut excavation installation methods. As required by the EPA, National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, implementing regulations, EPA must complete the NEPA review process before awarding a grant for design and/or construction. The Water Division is asking to consider this memo as a request for an exemption to notice under 56-6 for Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated, an amount of $66,000 for a one-time fee for services rendered, as outlined above.
Thank you. Is this a business consulting service that you've used in the past?
Oh, yeah, we've been using them for about 40 years now. We also contract with Beta Engineering also. So this is part of the earmark that we got from Senator Reed. Now we're in the bid phase, so we have to finish the application process. So the NEPA is the National Environmental Protection Act. So anytime you're doing environmental studies or environmental projects, you have to go through this application process, which is a bond way above our scope of expertise. This is when an engineering firm has to come in to secure this $3.5 million. We have to spend the $66,000 for this review.
Thank you. And you said you identified an earmark from Senator Reed. If you don't mind, could you, in just a short brief, just tell us what that earmark is?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, we applied for an earmark for $4 million. We were awarded 3.5. So it's an 80-20% match. We have to, through the state revolving fund, we're going to support 20% of that match. And we were granted the award, but now we're just trying to finish the last application process. And whenever you get federal money, the NEPA gets involved, and you have to go through this process.
Thank you. And this is a required, if you will, mandated
Yes,
project we have to do.
Correct.
Thank you. Questions from members of this committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Has the city solicitor reviewed this entire contract?
Yes, he has.
He has. And he has approved it?
Yes.
Interesting. So a few things that caught my eye actually yesterday going through this. It speaks to if work extends beyond 2023. Rates are based on Stantec 2023 US rate table annual escalation. If work extends beyond 2023, Stantec reserves the right to request an amendment for rate adjustment. Now, further on in here, or perhaps in the beginning, it speaks to the commencement date, which I'm assuming is that statement I just read to you is referencing from the commencement date of February 1st, 2023. We're into April now. By the time anything happens on our end, it'll probably be end of this week or next week. And then it speaks about Stantec could take the grant application coordination is anticipated to take 6 months from the notice to proceed. So how is that all going to play into the city being protected from cost increases?
So the project is out to bid as we speak.
I'm sorry?
The project is out to bid as we speak, and the deadline for bids is May 4th. So we are moving ahead with this project. We have money in reserves. So the project is going to start in June.
Will it be completed by the end of 2023?
No,
So that means we're going to have additional costs?
possibly.
And yet we have no idea what those costs will be.
It's whatever Stantec, their rates are. This is one of two major lines that feed this city. And I consult with not just Stantec with their price, but I also consult with Beta, to see if they're on point with their pricing, and they are.
It also says that there's certain permits that may be required that are not included in this. Has a number been put on those?
This is part of this request, the 66,000
Okay.
for the NEPA for those applications and permits.
Well, I understand the need to do this, and I feel a little more comfortable now that you've told me the city solicitor has reviewed this contract and has approved it. I'm not an attorney, but I do have some knowledge in contract law, very familiar with force majeure and how that could impact us on a moment's notice. But if he's clear on all of it and says it's fine with him, who might argue? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions, comments from members of this council? Questions, comments from members of the public? Questions, comments from members of the public? Thank you. We are now at the time where I would ask members of this committee, members of the council, and members of the public, if they would like to have any items individually heard within this bid package, I ask that they identify it. I will begin with members of the committee. Councilman Foley.
Yes, there's three, but they're all related, so it's basically one question. Item 10, which is 2024-009A. Item 13, which is 2023-195B. I'm sorry, wrong one. Not 13, my bad. leave that one off. 14, which is 2024-009B, and then 15, which is 2024-009C.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Now we'll go to members of the council. If there is any item members of the council would like to pull for discussion from the bid package. Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to pull item number 8, found on page 36, police detail tracking system.
Yes, sir.
I would like to pull item number 11, found on page 49, high-density polyethylene pipe.
Yes, sir.
And that's it.
Thank you. Are there any further items from the bid package members of the council would like to pull? Are there any items from the bid package members of the public would like to discuss? Are there any items from the bid package members from the public would like to discuss? Thank you. So we'll go in order. So we'll begin with item number 8, which is bid 2024-030 police detail tracking system. That is found on page 36. Please identify yourself, Major.
Major Andy Sullivan for the Police Department.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Lattisaw.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Major, could you just run through this item for us and why this is of particular importance?
So the detail tracking system, we originally implemented it in 2020, and we used it for details only. It's an app and a desktop accessible app that controls the details and scheduling. About a year later, we implemented police scheduling, regular scheduling also. And then this past July 1st, 2022, we pulled the civilians into it also for scheduling. It's a very user-friendly software for scheduling and details and billing and invoices and the whole kit and caboodle. And saves on human error. It makes tracking and doing analytic reports very easy. And it's just been a time saver and personnel time saver also.
Mm-hmm. I think this is an excellent piece of software. The purpose of using it and the reason for using it, I think, is excellent. I think it's something that should be used by other departments in this city in terms of tracking vehicles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a very responsible piece of software. And I wanted to just hear what you had to say on this, Major, because again, I think this is something that other departments should be looking at. The one thing I would want to point out is 1, 2, 3, in third paragraph down, I think there was a typo on the date where it says effective July 1st, 2023. Should that have been effective July 1st, 2022?
Yes, that was July 1st, 2022. That is a typo, the 23.
Okay, so we just need to make that correction on that. I just want to read this into the record, Chairman, because I just think it is so important and that this program is so important to the city. It says the continued use of this software will provide better accountability and tracking of police details along with the functionality to effectively and efficiently administer and track the management of the police department's workforce in the areas of requested time off, scheduled time modifications, and overtime approval and tracking. I'm really pleased to see this not only being implemented, and I'm sure how it's had a very positive impact on the police department, and would certainly like to see this used elsewhere. Thank you. Thank you, Major.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Foley.
So Major, just a follow-up on that. With all the positives that this new tracking system has, this is something that the department initiated. This is something the department looked into and researched and went out for. It was not prompted by complaints from citizens or oversight committees. It was something internally that the Warwick PD looked into.
That's correct. Just something more efficient for us to use. We historically, a little historical background, we use CrewSense, which the fire department uses. That is more of a fire scheduling app than it is a police scheduling app. So we learned that after using it for a couple of years, and we got away from that and moved into DTS.
My commendations on taking the lead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions, comments from members of this committee? Questions, comments from members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
I'll just echo Councilman Lattiser's support for this. It's one of these items that when you look at it, black and white as part of the bid package, someone might take a look at it and say, what's this $26,520 all about? But then when you look at it in terms of the many millions of dollars that we're spending for the time of the police officers and the civilians as part of the police department, and think about how much more efficient it is to track time this way, how much more easily it is to pull up information versus having to dig through file cabinets full of handwritten notes, or the potential human error of entering data on an Excel spreadsheet and the like. Just how much more accessible it is, how much easier it all is to track. It really is a no-brainer, and it's the same type of practice that I use myself when I run my own business, which similar software for me to be tracking my time and the like. It's a lot more per user for me as one person. So just looking at that and having that as a reference seems like the per user cost is very reasonable given the hundreds of users here and the efficiencies that this has in fact brought to the department in recent years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions from members of the council? Questions, comments from members of the public? Members of the public. Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
Upon agreement of Councilman Foley, he'd like to speak on his items at the altogether. So we'll move on to bid 2024-012 high density pipes. I'm not even going to try to say that word because I know I'll butcher it. Councilman Lattiser, this is found on page 49. Christy, would you please identify yourself?
Christy Moretti, Public Works.
Thank you. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought Councilman Foley had pulled out item number 10 as well.
Yes, as I mentioned, Councilman Foley asked to speak on the
Okay.
three items because they're all similar questions. So
Okay.
we move forward for you, and then I'll revert back to his.
Thank you. I like being put ahead of someone for a change. Thank you. That's good.
Thank you.
Christie, as I always do, I ran all the numbers on these bids, and you're recommending Linden and Warwick Windwater. When I first looked at this, at first blush, I'm looking at the first few items, and I can't see the reasoning or the rationale why you're leaning towards Warwick Windwater versus Ferguson. But as I continue down this list and I add up every single number, that was a good choice with Windwater. And you all know I don't have a problem calling out when when I disagree with numbers and when I think there's errors made, but I also don't hesitate to extend the compliment and the kudos when there was a really good job done. And I'm sure you put a lot of time into running these numbers as I did. And just for the record, Ferguson, year one, an average per item of $60.24. Year two, an average of $74.49. Windwater, first year, $65.75. So they're $5 average more than Ferguson. But in the second year, they really pull ahead. Windwater comes in at $65.75, almost about $9 cheaper, actually almost $11 cheaper than Ferguson. So pardon me for taking the time to go through this, but it's important to compliment people when they are spot on with something, and this is a good choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I also would like to second that this is, you take in account also the ordinance that we, as a council, approved, the 7% to local businesses. Warwick Windwater falls under that. So
I did. In the beginning, I was kind of leaning in that area. And the first item, I don't think they quite fell under or into that 7%, but as you go through all these numbers, if you took the time to add up all of these numbers and average them out, clearly Windwater was the winner on this one.
agreed. Thank you. Any further questions from members of this committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Next will be item number 10. This is bid 2024-009 Alpha, quarterly fire alarm inspections and testing. This is found on page 45. This is requested by Councilman Foley. Christy, if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself for the record.
Christy Moretti, Public Works.
Thank you. Councilman Foley.
I am going to be magnanimous again and give my colleague, Councilman Gebhardt, his opportunity.
My question was actually for the finance director, but I think she's not here any longer. But I think we've asked the same question every time this comes up, is if there's a way to consolidate these all and see them once annually, given the low dollar amount and the repetitive nature. Not really for you. But.
Well, we're required to have them tested quarterly.
Say it again.
We're required to have them tested quarterly.
Not the testing, the bid. Right. So if we could see like a citywide fire alarm testing, one bid once a year for $10,000 or something. Well, there's 3, and then I think there's like 6 that come up on another in another month or so, and we do see it many times every year.
For the record, we're just going to pause for a moment while a microphone is updated.
So Councilman Gebhardt, I apologize. This bid actually covers all of the buildings that we have fire alarms in, and is citywide. Each location is billed directly to any particular person. If you look on page 47, that's the actual, the way the bid pricing page goes out. So the first 9 items come to me, and then number 10 goes to police, number 11 goes to the animal shelter, and then the balance goes to the fire department. So we do all do this together, but we just award separately. In basically, that's why we have an ABC, only because if someone has an issue with what Public Works is asking, the other departments don't get held up. So they can move forward with their award, and then we can, or vice versa, work out whatever's the issue.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Foley.
I'm good. My question was answered.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. So I understand what you just said about those individual reasons for doing this. It just seems to be quite time consuming. But more importantly is, we're talking, short amounts of monies here for the most part. Instead of doing this thing quarterly, why can't you go out for a 2-year bid on this item?
It's a 1-year bid. So we're required by fire code to have our fire alarms tested every quarter, as I'm sure you probably know.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
So this bid is for 1 year. So it's July to July. So this July 12, I believe, till July 11 of next year. So that covers us for the 4 quarters that we're required to have the testing done, as well as covers us for any repairs that might need to be made.
Again, with being short amounts of monies for each one of these, have you considered going for a 2-year bid?
Well, mine is not a short amount of money. I'm asking for $20,000. I mean, Public Works is the one that facilitates this bid. We're the ones that put it out. We're the ones that, come first, just because we're the biggest spender, so to speak. So, as far as the other departments are concerned, I can't speak for them, but I would have to come before the council regardless.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Because Councilman Foley called for the, I apologize. Any further questions from members of the council? Further questions, comments from members of the public? Questions, comments from members of the public? I will now go to bid 2024-009 Bravo, quarterly fire alarm inspections and testing, found on page 73. Councilman Foley?
My questions have been answered.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Next is bid 2024-009 Charlie, quarterly fire alarm inspections and testing, found on page 77. Councilman Foley.
My questions have been answered.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Questions from the committee? Questions from the council? Questions, comments from the council? Questions, comments from the public? Questions, comments from the public? May I have a motion on the consent calendar?
Favorable action?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much. Next, we will move to PCO, the Finance Committee agenda. We have already voted on the minutes. We will move on to PCO 8-23, an ordinance and amendment of Section 66-5 of the Code of Ordinances, approving the financing of the design, construction, repair, rehabilitation, equipment, extension of the city sewage collection systems, including but not limited to interceptors, truck lines, pumps, manholes, pipes, design, feasibility, engineering, assets, and other studies which may be necessary, desired in connection therewith, and increasing the amount of the sewer system, revenue bonds, and notes that are authorized to be issued upon the amount not to exceed $30 million. This is for second passage. Members of the committee, members of the council, members of the council, members of the public, members of the public, may I have a motion?
Move favorable action?
Second.
I have a motion for favorable. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
For the record, PCR 24-23, formerly bid 2023-088, repairs engine 13 has been voted to hold. The time is now 6:14 and the Finance Committee is closed. Thank you.
The next committee to meet will be the Ordinance Committee, and that can take place at this time.
It better be short. Second row. Yo, hold on a second. Oh, no problem, buddy. I'm ahead on points. I'm fading now. I had a 3-day show over the week.
So ordinance will convene at 6:17 PM. First, we have acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on April 3rd, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 4-23, an ordinance amending Chapter 32, Article 2 of the City of Warwick Code of Ordinances to update standards and processes relative to the regulation of donation drop-off boxes. This is Councilman Howe and Councilman Ricks. It would be first passage. Which one of you want to take this?
Thank you. Let's see, taking a quick look around the room for Councilman Howe. I am up. So let's see. I want to thank Councilman Howe for taking the lead on this. This is, and it continues to be, a collaboration with the administration. As you can see from the draft, the vast majority of this item remains as it had been, but there are some updates to better facilitate this as a matter of administrating the program. Let's see. Unless there's anything that Councilman Howe wants to add to this, that is PCO 4-23, an ordinance amending Chapter 32, Article 2, relative to the regulation of the donation drop-off boxes. I would recommend favorable action.
Thank you. Can we just have the conversations, if we could take those outside? We'd have a little trouble hearing, Councilman. Thank you.
Councilman Howe, do you have anything you want to add or no?
I want to second what the councilman said. I respectfully request favorable action. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. PCO 13-23, an ordinance amending Section 64-4 of the City of Warwick Code of Ordinances to provide regular city pay to city employees who utilize military time. This is Councilman Howe. It would be first passage.
Respectfully request this item is held until the May 8th meeting, Chairman.
Request to hold till May 8th.
Move to hold to May 8th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to hold till May 8th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That concludes ordinance at 6:19 PM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next meeting, next committee to meet is Public Safety, and that can take place at this time.
Where did Bill go? That's how it works, right?
Finance guys. Hey, Jerry, I might be a little late tomorrow. I got it till 10. It's a team, so I got to
Gotcha.
do it from there.
Yeah, well, hey, it'll be good to see you.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Exciting.
Yeah. When was the last time you were in there?
It's been a while.
Yeah, I toured Wicks right before the end. Because, you know, the NT, and of course, they got broken into at Wicks and they sort of fire things around, so it was kind of messed still.
Yeah. We're up. Cool. Yeah, I know there's been break-ins over in there over the years, so
Yeah, so hopefully, yeah.
ready. Hopefully it wasn't too bad.
We'll get it that way, like some animals that made it its own.
Good evening. The Public Safety Committee is called to order at 6:21. Thank you. First order of business is acceptance of minutes from the meeting held on April 3rd. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First item is PCR 3121, Angela Toljan claim. Good evening. You wish to speak on your claim? If I may, the recommendation is to deny, and the reason being that the claim was not received until January 26th. The incident happened on the 9th. So would you care to speak on that, please?
I show that I filed it on the 20th. I wrote the letter on the 19th, and I thought I could email it, and then read the directions, and I believe it was I think it was dropped off in person, either on the 19th or the 20th. I actually don't have documentation stating that that was done. And the car was brought in the night of the accident, and I only had the final bill the day I picked it up. So Tuesday, they got it on Tuesday morning, the 10th, and I think it was the 17th that I was able to get a final bill and know the full charges. And I filed the paperwork on the 19th, but I thought I got it to you by the 20th. I thought it was dropped off, but it could have been mailed. I don't remember anymore.
My only question, and you just explained it, but I was looking at some paperwork here too. So the claim file that was signed was dated on the 19th.
Correct. So either got put in the mail on the 19th, or I dropped it off in person on the 20th. I don't remember which.
Any questions from the members of the committee? Councilman Ricks.
For the last 3 years or so, we have been a bit more lenient than in the past when it comes to these deadlines. The whole 7-day requirement as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here, let's see. And here, I don't believe that there are the multiple quotes or estimates, correct?
There aren't in this case because the car was still under warranty and it's not allowable to have it fixed by anybody else. So the tire warranty, the rim damage, that would have been considerably more if I'd gone somewhere else. So that had to be serviced. Plus the entire car was still under complete warranty by Jaguar. So I can't imagine that it would be in my best interest to go outside of the warranty.
Right, and that makes sense to me. So I think that in the past we have had a similar exception to the policies that we've enforced of the 3 estimates or quotes. That's the generally applicable requirement that we have. But I do recall that we have made exceptions under these types of circumstances. And thank you for explaining the circumstances.
Yeah.
So here we do have proof that an insurance company paid out on this claim. We do have proof that there is a balance on the claim after the payment of the insurance company. And I'm also seeing here in the packet that there is proof of, that is a screenshot of the call to that dealership on the date in question. So I think that any concerns that we have, that our policy is intended to have about the 7 days, and the concerns that our policy is intended to address as to the general need to get 3 quotes, I think that those various concerns have been sufficiently addressed here through the documentation and through what the claimant has advised. That, along with this all being during that period where the COVID-19 emergency was still in effect, I think that under all of those circumstances and given the evidence here, I would be comfortable granting this in that maximum pothole amount of $300.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee, from the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd point out to members of the committee that in our packet, you have a stamped receipt by the city that this claim was received on January 28th. And you also have the statement from the executive director of DPW saying it was received on January 26th.
Actually, I did make a note, sir. It was mailed on 1/20.
Miss.
Oh, sorry.
Miss, through the chair, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Just procedure-wise.
Sorry.
So with all due respect to when it was mailed, it was not, the stamp is right there. You got the document in your binder. The stamp says received January 28th, 2023. So that's twice the time frame that is required. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the council? Any other, one minute. Any members of the public? I've heard you, one second. Any other members of the public? Councilman Ricks.
I would just briefly address through the chair the concerns raised by Councilman Lattiser. So from looking at the materials in the packet, the way that they printed out, it certainly does look like a received January 28th stamp, but it looks like looking at the colored copy and really zooming in, it becomes a little clearer that it's 26, not 28. And that also makes more sense because the 28th would be a Saturday and the city wouldn't be processing the mail on a Saturday anyway. So I think that based on the statements of the claimant as to the day that she mailed it and understanding that, of course, the mail is a bit slower nowadays, I can appreciate that even it being mailed on that date would be outside of that 7-day period that we normally have, that we normally would abide by. But we have been a lot more lenient with that 7-day period in the times of COVID-19. And the COVID-19 orders were still in effect at that time. So to be even-handed about this, that's why I would tend to also be lenient as to that 7-day period here, as this committee has been in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? I'll ask the public one more time. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve in the amount of $300.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And hold on a second. The Public Safety Committee adjourns at 6:31.
The next committee to meet is the Intergovernmental Committee, and that can take place at this time.
My committee. It is now 6:33 and the Intergovernmental Committee is in session. We first have the acceptance of the minutes from the committee meeting held on April 3rd, 2023. Do we hear a motion?
I move to accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
The first order of business is PCR 43-23, a resolution requesting the General Assembly enact legislation 2023 H5724 and 2023 S328, making vital records accessible to local registrars and grant local registrars the authority to issue certified copies of certificates and records. Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I put this in on behalf of our clerk. This is an opportunity. There's a lot of make things available here in Warwick City Hall. So residents of Warwick don't have to travel to Providence. They can come in to City Hall to get these records that they're looking for. So I'm in support of that. And again, this will be a resolution that would go to the General Assembly that the administration and the clerk supported, and I put it in on their behalf and support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any comments or questions from the committee? Questions or comments from the council? Councilman Ricks?
I would just like to add that I think that this is an excellent idea, and I thank Council President McAllister for sponsoring this legislation.
That's it.
One more item, I suppose, is I'd also like to thank our city clerk for stepping up and agreeing to do extra work.
Any rebuttals? Any other questions from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Move favorable action.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is now 6:35 and the Intergovernmental Committee is adjourned.
The next committee to meet is the Appointments Committee, and that can take place at this time.
Good evening. The time is now 6:36 and the Appointments Committee comes to order. First up is the acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on April 3rd. Do I have a motion?
Motion for favorable action.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have one appointment before us this evening to the Library Board of Trustees to support our wonderful library. Peggy Chase is the potential appointee. If you look in your packet, you will see Ms. Chase's biography, as well as the appointment paperwork. Everything appears to be in order. The term would be from appointment until December 31st, 2026. Does anyone have anyone from the committee have any questions? Mr. Snappy.
Not a question, just a statement. I'm glad to see her background and education are exactly what you want to see for this. So it's good news all around.
Yes. Thank you. Well said. Anyone from the council have any? Council President McAllister.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chafe is a constituent of mine. lives across the street. I thank her for stepping up to do this. As Councilman Sinapi pointed out, she's a librarian in East Greenwich. She's been working in libraries since 1996, has a degree in it, and I think is a really good fit for the library board. So I'm really happy that she wants to dedicate and donate her time to serve the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Council President. She is here, yes. Yeah. Anyone else, any other members of the council have questions, comments, kudos? Ms. Chase is here. Any members of the public have anything to add? All right, hearing none.
Move favorable action on the appointment of Peggy Chase to the Library Board of Trustees.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome to the library board, Ms. Chase. There is no other business before the Appointments Committee. The Appointments Committee adjourns at 6:39 p.m.
The next committee to meet is Public Properties, and that will take place in 1 minute at 6:40.
Yes.
The time is now 6:40. The Public Property, Land Use, and Community Affairs Committee convenes. First up, we have acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on March 20th, 2023. I have to abstain from this one. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to accept.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. First item up, we have PCO 1123, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Warwick, JMR Properties, Inc., Petitioner, Assessors Plat 220, Lot 95, 5 Williams Street. This is for public hearing. Let's see, do we have anyone to present on behalf of the petitioner?
No, not yet. We're referring it for a public hearing.
Councilman Gebhardt, do you recommend referring to public hearing?
Yes, move to refer to a public hearing at 7 p.m.
Very good. Would you like to make that motion?
Move to refer to public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second and finally, we have PCO 6-23, order on the abandonment of a portion of Texas Avenue, JMR Properties LLC petitioner. This is for second passage. Councilman Howe, do you have a recommendation?
Respectfully request favorable action.
Request for favorable action. Is there a moving? Oh. Let's see. So this item, because it's a second passage, we would not be having the public hearing, correct?
No, my bad.
Very good. So do we have a motion, or excuse me, any comments from members of the committee? Comments from members of the council? Comments from members of the public? I'll just briefly state that although I was not here this first meeting, when this was first passed, I have reviewed the audio and video of that, as well as having prepared for that public hearing. All of my questions were asked and answered at that time. Therefore, do we have a motion for favorable passage, second passage?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes the City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs at 6:43 PM.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We will now be in recess until 7 PM, where we will call the full City Council meeting to order. We'll see you at 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. I call the April 17th, 2023 City Council meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Here.
Mr. Howe?
Here.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yeah.
Mr. Ricks?
Here.
Mr. Snappy? Ms. Travis?
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Councilman Ricks, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening, everyone. We are now moving to general communications. This is announcements of congratulations, condolences, or community events. I just have one general. The spring is here. There is lots of opening day events for the little leagues and softball leagues. They started this past weekend. I know there's a number coming up. There's also a number of cleanups that are happening around Earth Day, which is coming up this weekend. I know there was a big cleanup in Patuxent Village. So I'm in Patuxent River. So I thank all the people that participated in that. On Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there'll be a cleanup of Gorton's Pond by the community. And I know that there is a cleanup in Oakland Beach as well this weekend. So please get out. Hopefully we get more great weather like we had on Friday and Saturday, and we can continue. And please join these and participate in these community events. Does any members of the council have anything under general communications? Councilman Gephardt.
I just wanted to add that today, one of my constituents and one of our residents, Daniel Anter, ran his 25th consecutive Boston Marathon. He finished in 3 minutes and 33 3 hours and 33 minutes. That would be very fast. But congratulations to Dan. It's a tremendous accomplishment. There's only 120 people in the world who have ever completed 25 consecutive Boston marathons. So, yeah, quite an accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the council for anything under general communications? Okay, moving on to executive communications. There are none. A is the acceptance of the minutes from the council meeting held on April 3rd. Councilman Howe.
Council President, I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
I'm looking for a motion for acceptance of the minutes for the April 3rd meeting.
Move favorable action on the minutes.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Number one on the agenda this evening is appointments requiring confirmation. There is one to the Library Board of Trustees Committee report appointments.
Committee recommends favorable action on the appointment of Ms. Chase to the Library Board of Trustees.
All right. For action, Councilman Gephardt, can you move that for me?
I move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the Appointments Committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Yes. Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, appointment passes.
Thank you. The appointment passes. Next up is public comment. I do want to do last call. I have the sheet here. If there's any members of the public that would like to participate in public comment. Rule 41, after general communications and prior to the consent calendar, at the last regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council each month, there shall be a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes during which citizens may comment about Warwick government issues subject to the following stipulations. The total period of time for public comment shall not exceed 30 minutes. Comments need to be brief in order to allow as many citizens as possible to participate. Each citizen signed up and present shall not to exceed 5 minutes to speak. Provided, however, if there are more than 6 citizens are signed up and present, the 30 minutes will be split evenly among speakers. Time shall not be transferable among speakers. The topics for comment shall be issues directly affecting city government. City council members will not respond to questions during the public comment period. The public comment session will terminate at the expiration of either the earlier of the speakers concluding their allotted time or 30 minutes. Waiver of this provision requires unanimous vote of the council. So last call, if there's any other members of the public that would like to speak on Rule 41. Okay. We'll call up the first person, Rob Cody.
Okay. Yeah, I just had a couple of comments relative to the last council meeting. We were discussing the change in the taxes that could possibly impact businesses. And at the end of the meeting, when the general public no longer was able to have redress, Mr. Howe made some statements and specifically targeted myself and Bob Cushman. And I'd just like to briefly clarify those statements because they were less than accurate. One of the first things he said was that this particular individual was sending out false information pertaining to schools and that stating that that the council voted for schools. That's not what I said at all. What I said was that the council voted to move forward the stage 2 application prior to seeing it on February 7th because it wasn't complete till February 20th. And when it was completed, it wasn't Mr. Howe or the council that found the $85.7 million worth of error and omissions. It was Rob Cody that found them. That was the first thing. The second thing was he spoke about that given the fact that the business community here He made mention that I basically sent out false information on emails to bring people and get them upset. That never happened. I never sent out any emails. The emails were sent out by Lauren from the Chamber of Commerce, not myself. So that again was false information. He also made a statement, a very derogatory statement, that when I wasn't chasing down rescue trucks and fire trucks, that I was sending out false information. Well, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Howe, I don't chase down fire trucks or rescues. I see basic, blatant abuse of the policies, and I've documented the abuse of the policies. And if the city council or the administration was doing their due diligence, I wouldn't have to do that. Just as when we look at budgets and we document, we crunch numbers, it wasn't the city council that found several $100,000 or $500,000 worth of money that was absconded from the unused sick pay. It was Rob Cody, because I actually took the time to study the documents, crunch the numbers, and do the math. It wasn't you on the finance committee. It was a member of the general public that did that, someone who for 20 years has been actively looking at the budget documents, and actually, as a professional in the construction business, knows how to do that. You also made a comment about a Facebook page putting fear into senior citizens where they're going to lose their houses. Another false comment. It was the mayor who spoke about building the schools and the possible tax ramifications that could force people out of their houses. So I think you really need to be accurate in your assumptions. And it's upsetting because these things are said when we have no redress. So what I think an amicable professional solution would be, and this will be my offer to you, and Mr. Cushman and I will get a venue, whatever venue you like, whether it's at the public library or even a restaurant, we'll pay for the dinner. You come and answer questions that the constituents pose on subject matter such as contracts, infrastructure, taxes, and the building of new schools, because you have that expertise. You're on the council. You get to get all that information that we don't get. You come, answer questions posed by members of the general public and your constituents, where you don't have to hide behind the council rules that stop us from asking, and we're so limited. You come, and let's have that discussion in public. I challenge you to do that, because when we come here, you've conveniently set up rules and regulations to limit everything that we talk about. So let's have a friendly, amicable conversation at the library, in a public venue. You want hors d'oeuvres, you want a full meal, we'll pay for it. Come and answer some questions. You can bring Councilman McAllister or any of your colleagues. And let's set the playing field, and let's set the record straight, because I really don't like coming here to correct you when you make false statements based on lack of knowledge and lack of information. So let's do that. I'm available at any time at your convenience. We'll set it up, and I'd love to have you there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up on the, we're all set? Okay. Next up on the calendar is number 2. The agenda is the consent calendar, which is PCR 45-23, resolution relative to bids. Committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Go ahead, Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bid 2023-406, bid 2023-380 Alpha, bid 2023-424, bid 2023-429, bid 2023-381, bid 2024-013, bid 2024-030, bid 2023-425, bid 2024-009 Alpha, bid 2024-012, bid 2023-027, bid 2023-195 Bravo, bid 2024-009 Bravo, and bid 2024-009 Charlie. That concludes the consent calendar on the bids, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments on the consent calendar that were not asked earlier this evening in the Finance Committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy? Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, consent passes.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes. Councilman Howe, I believe one item has been removed from the consent calendar.
Yes, Mr. President. Bid 2023-380 Bravo Fire Apparatus Repairs, additional venues, has been requested to be pulled and is now PCR 47-23.
Okay. Do you have does the committee have a recommendation?
Recommendation of favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments on this? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I indicated in the committee meeting, I will be voting no on this item, not because of the item itself or the need for that support on that item, but because this is another time when the bid process, at least as I see it, is being circumvented. There are a multitude of vendors that are being included in this item for potential business from the city, but yet, for whatever reason, they have chosen not to bid. But in spite of that, in spite of the process and the reasoning and the rationale and the necessity for the bid process, the department is recommending to award the bids, I should say, to give the authority to the Department of Public Works to do business with these vendors in spite of the fact that they didn't bid. You don't know what the number is going to be. We don't know if they have the proper certifications that are required to do business with the city. And the bottom line is, they didn't take the time to bid for whatever reason. But yet, potentially, they still could be rewarded some business from this city, just as the same as the vendors that went through the process, they took the time to do the bid. And I think that's wrong. And this isn't the first time that this has happened, but I'm not going to support this for those reasons, because I can't encourage circumventing the bid process like this. I just think it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Gephardt.
I just wanted to make a brief comment. I understand the councilman's hesitation here. I, in the committee, had similar hesitations, but we did get additional information. Some of the vehicles going out for repair are specialty in nature, and that there are limited vendors who can only, perform. Christy gave several examples that were cogent. The department, of course, is going to, their first step is to attempt to fix in-house, which typically they're successful with. Step 2 would be to go out to one of the approved vendors. But where there are specialty items like a German motor or a special chassis or whatever the specialty condition is, that they may need to use one of these other approved vendors. So I was satisfied with Christie's explanation on that from DPW, and I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's no hesitation on my part. This is very definitive. I am not going to be supporting this. And I also stated in the committee meeting, after comments were made earlier, that the mayor has the right to do a 3-3 on anything of an emergency nature. So if you happen to have a vehicle that has a blown transmission and it's only available from ABC transmission, the mayor can do a 3-3 on that. But to just say this is traditional or this is correct protocol to potentially give a dozen vendors who didn't take the time to bid, who don't want their numbers to be known, who are not willing to go out on the line on competitive issues, is what happens when you do have a bid process. I'm not going to support that. So there's no hesitation. It's definitive. I'm not voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, this has been moved favorable and second, so the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
No.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. We're now moving on the agenda to referred business. This is going to be the public hearing, PCO 11-23, committee report, land use.
Recommend public hearing.
For action, Councilman Gephardt.
I move to open the public hearing.
Second by Councilman Howe. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. So now we're going to move to the public hearing. The way we set this up here is we will have someone present present to the city council. Then the members of the city council can ask questions and make comments. Then I will ask any residents here if they would like to speak in favor of this project. You'll have an opportunity to come up. Then I will ask if there are any residents here that would like to speak against this project to come up. And then we will have another opportunity for anyone who would just like to be heard on this project. So I just ask that all speakers speak into the mic and speak slowly. We have a stenographer here tonight to record this. So at this time, is there anyone here to present PCO 11-23?
Good evening, Mr. President, honorable members of the Warwick City Council. For the record, Attorney K. Joseph Shikachi representing the applicant this evening. With me tonight, I have Bill Lavery, project manager and engineer from Joe Casale Engineering. I'm just putting a rendering up. It's a very simple request. This application received unanimous approval from the planning board. It's a zone change from A10 to A10 PDR. The applicant purchased the property, is wishing to develop it into 2 duplexes for a total of 4 units. Under the City of Warwick density calculation, he could request up to 5, but due to the unique characteristics of the property, consultations with the planning department and with the planning board over this past summer, this was the site plan that could receive a positive recommendation, and hence a positive vote from the planning board. What you see is a property that is off of Post Road heading into East Greenwich. It abuts the railroad tracks. And what the applicant would like to do is build 2 very nice, very high-end condominiums. It's serviced by city water, city sewer. We think this is an appropriate land use. They're very nice. These are going to have individual elevators in them as well, so people can get up and down. Going to have a beautiful building high, have a beautiful view of the water. I'll be happy to answer any questions, go into details of it. We realize that 4 4 units will be 4 individual families. We have compensated with parking. The City of Warwick's parking calculation at 8 units. We're showing parking for 20 units, 20 spaces, excuse me, not 8 parking spaces. We're showing 20 parking spaces. Be happy to answer any questions. The engineer's here. The applicant, unfortunately, wasn't able to attend this evening due to a prior commitment, but his 2 sons are here as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions from the council and then the neighbors as well, if there are any.
Thank you very much. I believe this is in Ward 9, Councilman Gephardt.
Thank you. No, looking through this, I did have a couple of questions. Just to clarify, so the sanitation services for these units will be private. Is that correct?
Yes, it's part of the conditions from the planning department. That's correct.
I would just ask that in the process of finding tenants for these or property owners, that make sure that be communicated, because we have had some issues in the past.
That's a very, very good point. And thank you for bringing it up. It will be disclosed in the condominium declaration as well.
Okay. Good. And then I guess during the presentation, we can get into this, but there is there are a number of aspects of relief being requested here. I just want to make sure that not having had the benefit of being at the public hearing in the planning board, if we could just run through what's being requested.
Sure, I'll call up the engineer, Mr. Bill Avery, and ask to be sworn in, and then he can testify.
Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the council, William Lavery Jr. with Joe Casale Engineering.
Thank you. The clerk will swear you in.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the variances that we had requested with this project are predominantly due to the siting of the units on the site, trying to keep the development pushed away from the other residential neighbors. In doing so, we are requesting a variance from the side yard setback, the rear yard setback, and the distance between the buildings. That was all coordinated and reviewed with both planning and the building department of the best way to kind of site these buildings for the least amount of relief needed. That's why we put the buildings together a little bit. No building code issues, but we didn't have as much relief as for the side in the rear. There's also a variance for parking within 15 feet of the structure, which the type of townhome type structure we're using, the driveway is abutting the house. So that's kind of just a formal request for that. And then there is a existing variance for the frontage of the property. And that just goes with the parcel itself is already existing non-conforming for that dimension.
Okay, thank you from that. And I heard Mr. Shikarchi mention city sewer, city water. So that simplifies things. So I have not heard from the neighborhood or from any of the neighbors at this point. So we'll leave them. I remember having met. So thank you for coming tonight. But we'll let the hearing play out. But those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Latta, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sakachi, I just want to confirm that connecting to the sewers is going to be a mandatory requirement?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It was recorded in the planning board decision, and I believe if we were able to secure a second passage approval from this council, that it would be a requirement to usually incorporate that in your own approval as well. So absolutely, yes.
Question for Attorney Shikarchi. Were there many neighbors or residents who contacted yourself or the applicant outside of the meetings?
No, not that I'm aware of, but there were maybe three people who had questions in opposition to this at the planning board.
Okay. Yeah, I ask because with these sorts of proposals, I know that many notices go out, and so naturally there are going to be some people who have concerns.
Questions. Sure.
Yeah.
Legitimately so. I mean, originally, when the client first contacted me, he was looking to do like 10 to 12 units, different style, different smaller size, more units. That was unacceptable to the planning department. And we continued the negotiation, and we actually had a workshop, which is unusual for Warwick, not lately, but other cities and towns where you go and you meet not so much off the record, but it's a public meeting, but without a recording per se, and without notice, and you discuss this like a charrette, if you will. And we did that over the summer with the planning board, and my client at the time was asking for 5, and the planning board said no, 4 would be the most that they would entertain. So we redesigned it, and he basically upscaled it for 4 units. These are going to go for, well over $500,000 per unit.
I appreciate that you, your client, and of course the planning department and planning board all work together collaboratively on that in order to come up with the proposal that's in front of us. I know that extra steps such as these can be frustrating. Certainly, if I were to put myself in the shoes of someone making a proposal and then have to go back to the drawing board, that's not always the easiest thing. But taking those extra steps, going through that additional process, I think that there really is a benefit to it all that brought us here to this hearing this evening. From my review of the proposal and from hearing the history, I think that especially knowing that it's satisfactory to the planning department and planning board after great consideration, and also seeing the work that went into this, seeing the process that's been followed here, and also keeping in mind the housing crisis that we're seeing at a national level, state level, and local level. I think that well-planned and thoroughly thought out housing such as this, 2 buildings, each with 2 condominiums. I think that this is something that's in Warwick's best interest. That's my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask if there are residents of the... Oh, Councilman Sinapi.
Just a brief thing. I have a unfortunate bias against the private trash pickup because it has caused problems in my ward. So the only thing I'd ask is for you all to be cognizant of when it comes time to arrange that, to make sure whatever stipulations or contract you have with the private vendor is very specific as the timing and the receptacle for which the trash goes in. Because I've seen these buildings where they have multiple units, they'll give them a dumpster that is not adequate, or they'll come and pick it up pre 7 a.m., 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 4 a.m., and just wake the neighborhood up. So when you do arrange that, I definitely make sure it's as specific and ironclad as possible.
Absolutely. And if we will certainly follow the ordinance, and I will tell you if the council wanted to put in a stipulation no sooner than 9, no later than 3, whatever you would, and you can make it as part of a condition of approval if that's your desire, or let the planning board set it at the after. If we are successful with these 2 council hearings, there's another public hearing yet at the planning board sometime in July, June, July, August, somewhere in that time frame. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman?
I did have one other, I couldn't find this earlier, but just wanted to call out in the departmental responses that go around to all the departments within the city. The only one that I saw that was of note was from sewer, that there's a grinder to be installed and at the cost of the developer. So just making sure that that's on the record and
Thank you.
incorporated.
We understand that, and again, we will certainly comply.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, again, we're going to ask for anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this project. Any residents or members of the public that would like to speak in favor of this project? Good evening, sir, and just please identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, my name is Carlos Machado, pardon me, and I'm at 4540 Post Road, which is the adjacent neighbor on the north side, also the one requesting the rear yard, access. Excuse me. I know Steve. Well, I've recently met Steve. We've had conversations. I fully support the project. I think what he's going to do there is going to really improve the overall look of the neighborhood. Just what he's done in the last year and clearing the lot has just been amazing. It's opened up a beautiful view of the bay to a lot of our neighbors. I also own a home right around the corner on Duane Street. So in fact, I'm a dual neighbor. Again, I have full support. He has my full support. I've also spoken to a couple of neighbors in the neighborhood, and they, at least they supporting it as well. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are there any other individuals who would like to speak in favor of this project?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. So my name is Greg Eccleston. I'm a broker associate with Century 21 Access America. I've been in real estate in Rhode Island for 38 years, and I reside at 9 Ladd Street, which is the next street down south, running parallel. And I'm just outside of the 200-foot radius, but I kind of wanted to say a few things about my thoughts on this. So it's my opinion as a realtor and as a neighbor that this construction is attractive. It's higher end, so as far as what kind of a effect it's going to have on the neighborhood, I think it's going to be a positive effect. And if anybody's concerned about their property values, I think it's only going to positively affect the values in the area as well. The architectural design, I think, is very attractive. I think 4 units on over 3/4 of an acre of land in that area is adequate if he can get approvals for setbacks. Many of those homes sit on 6,000, 7,000 square foot lots. Some of those are multifamilies. I'd also like to point out that I have a couple of neighbors here that I'm very friendly with, and they have legitimate concerns. So I think if those concerns can be answered and addressed, hopefully you'll be good with what's going on here. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who would like to speak in favor of this project? Are there any other individuals who would like to speak in favor? Are there any other individuals who would like to speak in favor? Are there any individuals here that would like to speak against this project? Sure, come on up to the mic, sir.
My name is Christopher Stafford. I live at 33 William Street, directly next door. I'm the one that sold him the property. As before, when I was at the, what was that, a zoning board?
Planning, yep.
Right, or planning board. I just had concerns about parking. Oh.
Yeah, it's hard to hear, sorry.
Sorry about that.
There it is.
Jesus Christ. I'm not experienced at this. But anyway, yes, we had discussed that about the parking. As long as there's no vehicles that are being parked on the street, because the street narrows up where my house is. And in case of an emergency vehicle needs to get down, I want to make sure that the street's clear. Because I've had heart problems. I have a 80-year-old, actually 2 80-year-old neighbors, and I don't want any sort of congestion down there. Now, I seen the piece of paper that was sent to me about rezoning the property. Can you explain to me exactly what we're rezoning? I mean, it was a one-page thing. I have it with me.
Sure, Attorney Shikashi. You can use this mic over here too, Attorney, if you'd like, just so you don't have to keep going back and forth. So he could stay there.
I'd just like to see what you have, sir. I think I know what it is. I think it's just a notice that was in the newspaper. Yes.
This is the only thing I was sent.
So
I don't have my eyeballs on.
That's
so
okay.
I might have to borrow yours.
Yeah, go right ahead.
No, it's all right.
So it very simply says the current zoning is A10,
Okay, yeah, I see.
and now we're rezoning it, staying A10, which is called Planned District Residential.
Now, what does that mean?
It would allow for this development.
I've seen that. I have that plan.
Yeah, so that's all it means, is it would allow these 4-unit residential development on 31,529 square feet.
0.72 acres.
Yes. With less than required frontage, less than required minimum yard setback, and less than required rear yard setback. Less than required separation between the buildings, and parking within 15 feet of a residential building.
All right, so basically, the piece of property is not going to be rezoned.
That's correct. It's going to be have these
Okay.
conditions.
Will
it would stay A10, but it would have allowances, exceptions to allow this particular development on that one
Right.
particular development.
We already went through that at the
Planning
previous
board.
meeting.
Yes, I remember
at
that,
the
sir.
Planning board. All right, so I was just concerned with it being.
Excuse me, sir. You have to speak in the mic because they're recording it, so.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I was just concerned that the property itself was going to be rezoned into a different category or
No,
something. and
same category.
I really didn't, I
Yep.
didn't see anything on that. I
And
just seen
you
rezoning.
make a very good point, sir. The parking calculation calls for 8 parking spots for these 4 units. We're providing 20 parking spots for these 4 units.
Okay, well, just, I explained totally.
Yeah, that's why we put the extra parking because of what you said at the planning board hearing.
Exactly. All right, good. As long as there's adequate parking and we don't have vehicles parked on the street. Because like I said, I've had open heart surgery and I've had brain surgery. I got 2 80-year-old neighbors. I just want to make sure emergency vehicles can get down the street. And if they've increased, the architect or whatever has increased it, then I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you.
I just seen this rezoning and that.
I agree. It's a little, if you don't know what it is, it looks like.
Yeah, I had no idea exactly what it was. So
Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
questions answered.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
I'm
much.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who would like to speak against this project? To this mic right here.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Reed. I live at 15. I'm Kelsey Reed. I live at 15 Blackmore Street, which is just down from the property. My reason for being here tonight is to just express my opinion on the change of the zoning, that my understanding of zoning is set in place for a neighborhood to keep the integrity of a neighborhood. And this change for this lot is different than the rest of the neighborhood, which is mostly single-family homes. There are other homes in the neighborhood that are multifamily, but I think it goes up to 3 units. I think A10, does anybody know the rules exactly? A10 allows up to 3 multiple family units on a lot, but because this is going to 4, that's why we need this zoning change. That if the plan was for a 3-unit development, that we wouldn't need this zoning change at all, and it may be more in accordance with the existing character of the neighborhood. Also, I think I understand that if it's only 3 units, it would still be covered by the city trash pickup. That when it goes to 4 is when you need the private trash pickup. So if it was only 3 units, it would be under the city of Warwick would be able to handle the trash pickup for this particular development. I think the development is very nice and very beautiful, but I just don't think it's consistent with the existing character of our neighborhood. Also, the concern is the increase of traffic. We have a very peaceful, quiet neighborhood. Making 4 units available at the end of this corner, Williams and Blackmore, would increase traffic on both sides of that corner coming in. And the last thing was, nope, I think that's everything. I covered everything. Those are my concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this project? Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this project? Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this project? Okay, hearing none. Councilman Gephardt, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second by Councilwoman Travis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Now, are there any questions or comments from members of the council on PCO 11-23? Any other additional questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
I will move favorable action on the first passage for this zone change.
It's second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Ricks, Councilman Foley, and Councilman Howe. and Councilwoman Travis. Any other additional questions or comments from members of the council? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, first passage.
Thank you. First passage.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who came out this evening to speak on this. Next up on the agenda is unfinished business. Number one is PCO 6-23, Committee Report, Land Use.
Recommend favorable action for second passage.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley and Councilman Lattiser. Any questions or comments on this that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Number two this evening is PCO 8-23, Committee Report, Finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in Finance Committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action. Yes.
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 Thank you. Second passage. Next up is PCR 24-23, which is now 2023-88. This is going to be held to May 8th. Number four this evening is PCR 31-23, Committee Report, Public Safety.
Recommend favorable action on the amount of $300.
For action, Councilman Foley.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Ricks and Councilman McElroy. Questions or comments? Councilman Sinapi.
Because I tried to bring this up during the committee meeting, but I wasn't able to get heard. The claimant only submitted one estimate, and the proffered reason was that the dealership had to be the one to repair it due to the nature of a warranty. I don't remember us ever doing that, as far as saying it's okay to just have one estimate despite a particular circumstance. Usually we are incredibly difficult about that, in fact, to the point where we'll tell people, like, look, go Google it and figure it out. You have a tire, Google the tire. You have an auto body place, ask them what they would have charged for it, regardless of whether or not they can do it due to the nature of your warranty. So I'm not saying the claimant should come back and explain the nature of her reasoning, because she made it very clear in her papers. My suggestion, and what I'm about to make a motion for, is to hold it unless and until she submits the two additional estimates, just like we make everybody else do. And I recall us giving some people a real hard time who had to jump through hoops to get estimates even. So I don't see any reason why this person's differently situated to make that unreasonable. So I'd move to hold this until at least, let's say, the May 8th meeting, to give her time to do it, and then we can always delay it further for her. Because I'm not suggesting we make this impossible for her. I'm suggesting we just be fair.
Yep. Council, let me get a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman. Any additional comments, Councilman Sinapi? Nope. No. All right. Any other questions? Councilman Ricks.
My position on this is that, from my recollection, we have done this before as a committee. It's certainly not something that's very common at all, but I do recall at least one instance where we did. And in doing so, I try to take a look at the purpose of the rule that we generally have in place for the three estimates, and that's to make sure that we are getting reasonable numbers, that there is being due diligence that's being served. So here, the maximum is $300 in relief. The total amount is far, far in excess of $300. But more importantly than just looking at it that way, is taking a look at, has there been an entity that's already done the work for us? Some entity that we can rely on that has a financial interest at stake here. And that, from that perspective, the answer is yes. The insurance company of the claimant has already processed the claim and awarded a payment of just under $2,000. And so because the insurance company has found that amount to be reasonable and paid out on that claim without trying to go back and say, okay, that total amount is unreasonable, we're going to knock that amount down to some lower amount. And the claimant here is seeking the balance as to the deductible that the insurance company isn't going to pay for that deductible. Well, here, the $300 being a fraction of that deductible, I really think that it would be making the claimant jump through extra hoops for no real purpose when we have reliable information that the amount that the claimant is due and has not received from any other source to cover this expense is absolutely over that amount of $300. So, although I can certainly appreciate the desire to enforce the same rules upon everybody, having that level playing field, I think that this is an area where if an insurance company has investigated the matter and paid out on the claim, then I'm comfortable with the city council, the committee, recommending and approving an amount of up to the $300 per state law that remains due to the presence of that type of deductible. Thank you.
Councilman Foley.
I agree with what my colleague said, Councilman Ricks. And in addition to this, if we hold this again, this will be the third time to hold this. The claimant has already come to 2 city council meetings. Through her own mistake, she did not know we were discussing it last meeting. She came to this meeting, and now to ask her to go back and find 2 more estimates for work that's already been done is burdensome. I'm going to vote in favor of this claim.
Councilman Lattice.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not looking to speak for Councilman Sinapi, but I think the point is the willingness of this committee to vary from its own internal rules and regulations. This claim, in addition to the points that Councilman Sinapi brought up, also was not filed in a timely manner. And it wasn't just a couple of days. It was, if I remember correctly, like a week or 10 days. So, as I mentioned earlier this evening about varying from procedures, how many times can you just say, well, it's okay because of this, it's okay because of that, but then it's not okay because of something else? We just need to be careful as to what variances and alternatives and conditions that we're looking to approve. I think the points that Councilman Sinapi brought up, he also indicated, by the way, that the claimant would not have to return before this council. He simply said that he would like to see 2 additional estimates as we typically require. And I will certainly be supporting that. Thank you.
Yeah, and additionally, it's not like she went to other dealerships and was told, walk off, you already got the repairs and you're not even contemplating them here. She didn't even try. We've had people, again, go through great lengths to get estimates because we made them do it. The only, I still can't recall one where we didn't do that, but I'm fairly confident that if we did, it was only in a situation where the person literally could not get them. This is not that situation. This person just didn't try. Granted, I'm not knocking her for it because she had a pretty darn good reason. If I was her, I'd probably be in a similar boat. But she's also never said, I'm not gonna try. She just wasn't told you have to. There's no reason not to require her to do it. And Councilman Ladis is right. Like, we have these procedures for a reason. We start deviating from them left and right. You have to have a damn good reason to do that besides, well, the insurance company checked it. Unfortunately, there's plenty of times that we have these come to us, an insurance company has paid out, and we said, no, we're going with the lower cost because that's what we do. It's part of the whole reason we have them get estimates. So I disagree strongly with the concept of just going with one simply because the insurance company said so. Anyone who's worked in the legal field, I don't trust insurance companies as far as I can throw them anyway. So regardless, it's a no. If it's a hold, I'm for it. If we're not going to hold it, I'm going to vote no.
Well, we have a motion to hold, and that was seconded, so that's before us at this time. Anyone else want to comment on that? Do we have a motion to hold? Councilman Ricks.
I'll try to do this briefly, respond that I certainly do not trust insurance companies either. However, that's mostly because insurance companies often aren't paying on claims properly that they should be. And where we have an insurance company that's paying on a claim, then because that insurance company has an interest in not paying on the claim, when I see that happening, that's an indication to me that that looks like a valid claim, especially when the total amount is, I believe that the total amount was a bit over $3,000. I have no reason to doubt that the claim was worth at least $300. I certainly appreciate the need to be consistent in our procedures, but I also take a look at what exactly is the city's interests in having those particular procedures in the first place. For the fellow lawyers here, I think about, for instance, the Rhode Island Supreme Court Hawkins case. So there's a common law concept of certain damages. There's a heightened requirement because of uncertainties, the subjective nature. Difficult to demonstrate certain damages in certain types of claims, but in other circumstances, the court doesn't see a need to have that same heightened standard. And similarly, we, in a lot of the contexts, don't have that heightened standard of getting 3 different estimates. We typically enforce that with pothole claims, but when we have an insurance company actually paying out and we have no reason to doubt that the insurance company is doing its own due diligence, well, that satisfies me as to the requirement to get those extra 2 quotes or estimates. The entire purpose, I recall, of this city council 2 or 3 decades ago imposing this 3 estimate or 3 quote system was because one shop started to become notorious where they never saw a pothole claim that was less than $300. And so the city council started to have that heightened requirement. But if there's no, under the circumstances, no reason to doubt the validity of that $300, it's in a different boat. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Howe.
Quickly, Mr. President, I just want to say, it seems like the discussion this evening is all about we're getting a document or we're getting a packet that wasn't completed. And I guess I would refer or not expect any answer, but to the administration, if there's something maybe moving forward where there would be a checklist. And if that checklist isn't complete, it doesn't come before the council. Therefore, the council doesn't get put in this position. where on a $300 claim, and I understand every dollar counts, but we voted on multi-million-dollar projects tonight, and we're spending the most time on a $300 claim. So because of missing information that went beyond the department that reviews it. So maybe that's something I would like to hear more discussion on outside of the chamber, where we have a protocol and a procedure before it advances to the council. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So this has been moved to hold to May 8th. Is there any additional questions on the motion to hold? Councilwoman Travis?
I was just going to add to the fact that I don't think it's fair for the people that we made go out and get more bids, or whatever you want to call them. The fact of the matter, when I was chair of the public safety, I sent people in my own ward back and told them, no, we need three estimates. And they had to go back and do it. So I don't care what kind of car they got or where they live or who they know. It's not fair. It should be fair for everybody.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, the clerk will call the roll on the hold this to May 8th.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
No.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
No.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Ms. Travis?
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no. Hold to May
Okay, held to May 8th.
Point of order.
Councilman?
Who's going to reach out to this claimant and ask? You will? All right, thank you.
8th. No, I'm not. No, I'm sorry. That's going to go back to the finance department because finance handles all of this. So we don't get them until it's supposed to be completed before it comes back to the council. Once we receive the claims, we just put them in your binder. We don't go through them. So I'll
Okay.
send it back to finance if everyone's okay with that.
My point is that someone needs in the city to reach out to this claimant because she left thinking that she was all set.
Okay,
Thank you.
as chairman, you will work with the administration on that. Thank you.
Mr.
New
President.
business, PCO 4-23, committee report, ordinance. For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action?
Second by Councilman Lattiser. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the ordinance committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, first passage.
Thank you for first passage. Number 2 this evening is PCO 13-23. This is going to be held until May 8th. Number 3 this evening is PCO 43-23, committee report, intergovernmental.
Favorable action, Mr. President.
Councilman McElroy, can you move that for me, please?
I move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Lattiser. Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the intergovernmental committee? Councilman Ricks.
If I recall correctly, I thought that the request on PCO 13-23 was to hold to May 8th.
Yes. That's what it was.
We did that. We're on number 3 on the agenda,
Oh.
PCO 43-23.
Pardon me, I must have been looking at the agenda incorrectly. Thank you.
No problem. Any questions or comments on PCO 43-23? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks, Mr. Sinapi? Ms.
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you, and motion passes. We're now moving to an item which is under unanimous consent. So the first vote at this time is there any objection to hearing PCR 46-23, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a construction and maintenance agreement with the state of Rhode Island for roadway resurfacing, sidewalk repairs, and/or traffic signal upgrades on Route 2, Route 113, West Shore Road, US 1, Centerville Road, and Tollgate Road. Is there any objections to hearing this at this time under unanimous consent? Okay. Hearing none, we will now hear PCR 46-23. I docket this on behalf of the administration. This is to give the city granting the state authority to put work in, specifically 2 signs, one in front of Warwick Vets Middle School and one in front of Robinson Elementary School. DOT is waiting on the consent from the council to start this project and get permission to work on the city property. Would anybody like to make a motion for favorable action on that? Councilwoman Travis?
I make a motion favorable action on PCR-46-23.
Thank you. It's second by Councilman Lattiser and Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments on PCR 46-23 from members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
To clarify, what this does is that the state would pay for the installation of those signs, and the city would just have the obligation to maintain those signs, and the city isn't going to be paying for anything other than the maintenance of those signs that the state is installing?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council? This was under unanimous consent, so it was not heard in committee. So are there any members of the public that would like to be heard on PCR 46-23? Are there any members of the public that would like to be heard? Are there any members of the public that would like to be heard? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved for favorable action. It's been seconded. So the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Yes. Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Ward 1, anything to docket under unanimous consent?
No.
Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
One item, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move the unanimous consent of the council to docket the second passage of PCO 4-23 at our next regular scheduled meeting, which is May 8th.
Is there any objections to hearing second passage at the next meeting from the council?
Which item was that, please?
PCO 4-23.
What's the title? Oh, okay, I got it. Okay.
Thank you.
The solicitor can give additional details.
Councilman, the way the schedule is going to fall, the second passage of this would fall on the night that we have intended and scheduled to hold the budget hearing. So we want to keep that night entirely for budget. This allows us to move the second passage up a couple weeks rather than delaying it a month.
No, I'm fine with it. I just didn't hear what the PCO was. Thank you.
That was
So is there any
4-23.
objection to hearing that from members of the council? Okay. Ward 4, anything under unanimous consent?
Pass.
Ward 5.
Pass.
Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8. Ward 9.
I have one with similar reasoning to Councilman Howe. I move to hear PCO 11-23 under unanimous consent at our next scheduled meeting, which is May 8th.
That was the public hearing that we heard
That's
this evening?
correct. Yep.
Is there any objections from members of the council on hearing this for second passage at the next meeting? Okay, no objections, so ordered. It will be heard at the next meeting. Thank you. Councilwoman Travis.
If there be no further business of this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
All those in favor of moving to docket session, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are now in the docket session. Ward 1, anything to docket?
No.
Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5.
Yes, Mr. President, I have one. It's an ordinance, and it's on behalf of the administration. It's an ordinance adopting the Warwick Harbor Management Plan.
Councilman, I think we docketed this one on. Wait 1 second. We docketed this at the end of February, so I know the materials have arrived now, but this has been docketed as PCO 723 previously.
Okay, that was just presented to me to do, so if it's already done, just tell me what that docket memo said.
That's it.
I have a docket memo from 227 saying tentative title on behalf of the administration, ordinance adopting the Warwick Harbor Management Plan.
Okay, yeah, very good, thank you. Don't need to do it
We're
again
happy
then.
to have the materials and we'll get it drafted for.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7, I have two, both on behalf of the administration. The first one is an ordinance amending Fire and Police 1 employer pension contributions and creating a funding strategy for other post-employment benefits. Okay, Finance Committee. The second item is a resolution requesting the General Assembly enact legislation amending state laws relative to state reimbursement of school construction indebtedness issued by a municipality or school district. Intergovernmental. Ward 8, anything to docket? Ward 9. There is no more business. The council meeting is closed. Thank you.